Hello and welcome back to Java with Sugar. My name is Steven Sugumar and we are exploring arc number 6, which is navigating the migration process. Again, I am joined with my host, Peter. This is the third installment of our arc and we're looking at the process of migrating from Field Service Edge onto Salesforce Field Service. This is important to understand. How can you migrate from the Field Service Edge solution onto Salesforce's solution called Field Service? What are some best practices? Are there any tools? And why does it make sense to move on to field service? We thank you for joining, and we're going to get right into it. Peter, where do you feel Salesforce Field Service stands in comparison to some of the offerings that Field Service Edge had?
It's a great question. It's a great way to start the discussion as well because of how important, how dominant Field Service Edge was in the industry. And I want to definitely call out that Salesforce Field Service is a step from Field Service Edge. It doesn't ignore what Field Service Edge learned and what it tried to do. And it's not new. It's not brand new anymore. It's been evolving since 2019. Salesforce puts out three new releases a year, updating, improving, adding new features. So you're looking at, I think now we're on what that would be release 11 or 12, I think. So there's a lot of new updates to consider. Salesforce definitely is looking to make sure that it grows quickly and that it's encompassing a lot of different use cases. So I think that's something important to take into consideration when we discuss Field Service Edge and Salesforce Field Service. What do you think, Stephen? Like, where's your head at when it comes to looking at the two of them?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I mean, like you mentioned, it's been evolving since 2019. It's the fastest growing product, I think, one of the fastest growing products in the Salesforce ecosystem. It too is a leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant, just as the ClickSoftware products were for many years. And I think that shows, right? Like there's a large investment from Salesforce to evolve that product and to have it be a market leader. So I would definitely agree that it is truly a comparable product to Field Service Edge and the whole ClickSoftware ecosystem as it was back in the day. Peter, what do you think in terms of Salesforce being a platform versus ClickSoftware being more of a best of breed solution?
Yeah, I think that that's something you really have to take into consideration because there's so many other Salesforce products that can support field service in a way where Field Service Edge maybe didn't have that kind of support or had to be a little bit more configurable or custom. There had to be more configuration or customization to create that kind of extra handling
Mm-hmm.
where Salesforce Field Service has those products like the standard ones like having Sales Cloud, but also having some industry clouds like manufacturing cloud, like automotive cloud, like energy and utilities cloud that can really round out areas surrounding field service to make sure that it's supported. It's not just an individual system, but it's supported. And like you said, the word platform, you can't get much better than that. So I think that's something really important to take into consideration there for sure.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I mean, the way I look at it is, ClickSoftware had a lot of vertical growth, right? Expanding on field service management. And of course, SFS has that as well. But I feel the platform gives you this horizontal breadth, right? Of marketing cloud, sales cloud, billing, CPQ. It just makes your whole business tech stack, your business architecture much more robust and centralized. But I do want to talk a little bit more about the parity around field service, Edge, and Salesforce Field Service. I mean, ClickSoftware was a business I founded, I believe, in 1999. So it definitely has 25 years worth of technology and innovation. Just as Salesforce was founded in 1999, but it started off as a CRM. I think Field Service Edge, there were just a couple things that it still does. I wouldn't call better, but a little bit more robust, a little bit more sophistication, a little bit more offered out of the box, let's say. I think those topics would be like capacity planning, demand forecasting. I think the Click Mobile Touch, the mobile solution, was a little bit more sophisticated in its offerings out of the box. That's not to say that Salesforce Field Service today cannot do those things. I think from a mobile perspective, um, there's a lot more available through Lightning Web Components, through some of the back end. I think it's easier to manage from an administrative perspective, but there is a little bit less being offered right off the shelf. And I think the same is true for capacity planning and demand forecasting. ClickSoftware Field Service Edge gave a lot of robust reports right out of the box. It gave a process to understand, what is your demand and then plan the capacity against that. Field service, it has all these same notions, but I think there has to be a little bit more tailored, built across to allow for such insights and metrics. But it does go beyond, right? When we look at things like CRMA, Tableau, these are powerful tools that can provide better analytics performance in the notion of capacity planning and demand forecasting, for example. So from a parity perspective, I don't think it's fair to compare apples to apples. One was a best of breed solution and one is a platform. The platform allows you to do much more and scale longer term, but there is a little bit more investment involved in that upfront. Whereas ClickSoftware, being that field service management solution, it was offering a lot of these things out of the box. So, take that with a grain of salt. I think from a capability perspective, both are there. It just depends on strategy of, that return on investment, how much of a complex use case you want to tailor into the system. So I think I've been rambling on a little bit about that. Please feel free to reach out to the Absolute for a much more in-depth conversation around this topic. But I want to move on. And Peter, are there any migration tools or processes on the market that can help a customer move from FSE to SFS?
Especially talking about the parity between the two of them. It's great to consider this, right? It's to start thinking about if you're moving from FSE, if you're considering SFS, how that is going to change things, because it will change. And I think number one, above all, because there's no official Salesforce created migration tool that exists yet, you have to take into account how familiar your implementation partner, be it Salesforce, be it Absolute, be it somebody else, is familiar with FSE and SFS, because you want them to know all the ins and outs of both, how the object model transitions between the two, what is handled differently between the two, all the specifics, because that's the intricacies is where you're going to have the most difficulty changing between the two. And then the other thing to consider in the process of migrating is, because like a silver lining of this situation is that because you're switching from FSE to SFS, it's an opportunity for you to decide, am I just looking for like exactly as similar as I can possibly make it to my FSE solution, or am I going to transform a little bit? Am I going to see things how SFS does them, and I'm going to adapt, I'm going to grow. I want to grow into this system that is going to continue to grow. Like I called out, 3 releases a year. They're going to keep improving. And so it's an opportunity for you to transform, one that you might feel potentially forced into, but it's important to consider that silver lining of being able to transform it and grow with the solution. I know I called out Absolute, very familiar with FSC. Stephen, I know that we have some things that we've worked on. Can you talk a little bit about how Absolute is prepared for migration?
Yeah, definitely. As you mentioned, Peter, there's nothing right now publicly available on the market, nothing from Salesforce at this time, but we do have something. The Absolute has our own IP. It is an actual tool that will analyze and parse your field service edge configuration, solution, and transpose that into field service. And this allows you to visualize what your field service edge solution is today, tomorrow on field service, right? We're seeing this speed up and provide more confidence in a sales cycle, for example, right? Being able to visualize what you have today and how it might look tomorrow, there's great value in that. And this process, this IP that we own, right? If we move forward and we go through with an implementation, there's a lot of dividends being paid out, right? This investment upfront with our tool and process is going to allow you for a faster implementation timeline, and it's going to save you costs as well. Understanding that design, that requirement, those processes, those will all be flushed from your field service edge right into field service by Salesforce through our tool. So I think there isn't a competitive advantage here from an SI here at The Absolute. And we hope that, those of you watching who might be interested, reach out to gain more information around this. Now I want to move on to our last topic here, Peter. Why Salesforce Field Service? There are so many other products that are on the market. Why would somebody choose SFS?
Easy answer is that SFS is the natural evolution of FSE. It took everything from FSE that Salesforce liked and it built off of that. So like we've been calling out, there's parity there. It's not an exact like for like replica, but we still have in SFS the best in class optimizer. It's still asset centric and customer centric for when you're handling work. But it's also grown from FSE and has started to adapt to include new use cases, a little bit more uncommon use cases out of the box. Things like being able to handle things virtually, the virtual remote assistant being one. And I think that that's an important thing to consider and to look at when we say why SFS when you're moving from FSE, is that it's growing, and I've said this a lot, and I'll say it even more afterwards, but it's growing and including like listening to customers, listening to other multiple industries, even taking ideas from other clouds that might not have initially seemed like they might apply to field service management and growing those into the solution again. I go back to that 3 releases a year. That means that Salesforce promising that they are going to have to think of things to improve on and to introduce to the solution. And I think that that's a really important promise and a really important ideology to consider when thinking about your next field service management solution. Stephen, anything else other than growth and 3 releases a year? I feel like I'm repeating myself.
No, I mean, they're good points. They're solid points. I don't think I have much more to add, but I will say, this Salesforce is an investment. They're going to be around for a long time. This is not a solution that someone will be buying for 5 years, not even 10 years, right? This can be decades long type of solution as their CRM is today, as Marketing Cloud is today, right? The growth that you're talking about, the innovation that they're bringing to the market, it's amazing, right? ClickSoftware definitely had some flavor of that, but the intensity that Salesforce is bringing here with field service, it's really exciting to see as both an implementer and hopefully I can imagine as a prospect, because we're definitely hearing the same from our customers. Thank you, Peter, for that. I do want to conclude our episode here with that. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to join. Just to recap, we looked a little bit about Field Service Edge versus SFS today. Are there any migration tools available on the market? And honestly, why someone would choose Field Service by Salesforce moving from Field Service Edge. Thank you again, Peter, for joining me on this one. Our next arc will be focused on making asset lifecycle management, ALM, easier for you. We ask everyone to subscribe and follow our LinkedIn page, Java with Sugar. And again, thank you and have a great day.